Okay, so today we're going to continue to awaken this 78 2F engine in a 76 FJ40. We're going to pull the plugs. We're going to go ahead and put in some lubricant down the cylinders in preparation for getting it to turn over first manually and then ultimately with the starter, working our way towards firing it up. So this is just the first step of many to try and awaken this 78 2F engine and see if we can get it to mate with the transmission and get the whole FJ40 running. Okay, so the plan this weekend is to hopefully get some Murphy's mystery oil down into those cylinders, let them soak for a few days, and then see if we can hand turn over the motor, make sure it's not seized, and then we'll work on getting the starter wired up to a battery I purchased, and then see if we can electronically crank it and then start seeing if we can get it to actually fire up through putting some gas in the carburetor and wiring up the distributor. So that's the plan going forward, and we'll slowly see if we can get this thing running and then do a tune-up, then start making sure all the plumbing is correct. Of course, we'll need the radiator for that running portion. And so we'll slowly see if we can get this engine awoken and then continue on with the rest of the restoration. So another thing that I've learned since starting working on this project is that the spark plugs don't take a standard spark plug socket. They're a little bit bigger. They need a 13/16 spark plug socket, and the guys at the auto parts store recommended a magnetic one so the spark plug pulls out. So you guys who are new to this and looking to pull spark plugs, you're going to need a 13/16 inch spark plug socket. Okay, so the spark plugs came out relatively easy. I used the spark plug socket, the 13/16. It reaches in there. I did have to put a extender on it so that the ratchet would clear the engine block, distributor, and everything else. Now, if you're going to put in some lubricant to make sure that the cylinders aren't seized, you're going to need something that's relatively narrow to fit in the spark plug hole. I had a couple of different funnels. The black one, the end was too big. The yellow one was the right size, but the neck was too small. So luckily I was able to find this other quick fill funnel which had the right size as well as the right length. So you need something with a relatively small outlet hole to fit into the spark plug well, and something pretty long to allow you to get the oil down in there. It's a little bit of a tight fit. So this is what we're going to be putting down the cylinders. The guys on the FJ40 forums suggest just a few teaspoons, just enough to coat the cylinder head and get down around the rings and down into the cylinder walls. Again, I'm assuming this engine will run, but I'm doing this as a multi-step process to make sure that it'll turn over, then slowly work up to running. You just don't want to hit it after it's been sitting idle for so long with a full cold start, so that that may break a few things or smoke a starter. So we're taking this in steps, so we'll be putting some of this down into each of the cylinders. Let it sit until the weekend. Today it's Wednesday, and then we'll try and see if it turns over by hand, and then slowly work up to getting it to turn over with the starter. And then once the radiator shows up along with all the new radiator hoses, we'll start getting it to a point where we can try physically firing it up. So that's what we're going to put down, a couple of teaspoons into each cylinder, and then let it sit. Okay, so using the red funnel, I was able to get some of the Marvel mystery oil into each of the cylinders. Cylinder number 6 back here in the corner was really tough. I had to go ahead and remove the old ignition coil and ballast resistor off the firewall to give me enough room to kind of get the funnel back in there. I'm not exactly sure how much got into the cylinder, but a good bit of it got down along the side of the engine, so we'll have to clean that up a little bit. Make sure there's no issue with the starter down below with any oil on it, but we'll let that sit with the plugs out for a couple of days. Let that kind of work its way in. We're in a covered shop, and I'll have the hood down, so there shouldn't be any issues. And we'll kind of let all that seep in, and hopefully loosen anything up that's might be stuck, and then we'll try and turn it over in a couple of days. Okay, so after letting the oil kind of seep in for a little while, I reconsidered my decision, and I put the spark plugs back in, but loosely, just to prevent any dust, contaminants when I close the hood, or anything from going into the cylinder. So I put the spark plugs back in the same cylinders they came out of, and they're in there loosely. I figure whatever air is in the cylinder head or in the valve train will allow the oil to kind of seep in and through around the rings, and let it drain. So maybe I'll come back tomorrow and remove these for a little bit, or consult the forums and see if this was a bad decision or not. But I don't know, a little voice was telling me don't leave them exposed into the unclimate controlled shop building. Even though we have a roof and there's no threat of this getting rained on or anything, I just I don't know, felt better that the plugs were back in, but loosely. So we'll see. Anyways, stay tuned. We'll slowly see if we can get this 2F engine to start back up, and then go from there.